r/AskReddit. What are you still salty about? In elementary school, there was a pencil machine in the front lobby where you could get pencils for 25 cents. There were also special pencils that had stars on them. If you got one of these special pencils, you could take it into the office and get a prize. One day, I decided to get a pencil. I put in my quarter and out popped 2 pencils. And one of them was a special pencil. I went into the office and told the lady at the desk that the machine gave me 2 pencils and one of them was special. She proceeded to say that the machine shouldn't do that, took the special pencil, and didn't give me a prize. That was 19 years ago, and I'm still pissed. Some people in petty power positions are truly a disgrace for humankind, and probably will ultimately be the ones to blame for the diminishing of our entire race. I love how this comment is about a pencil. I had this thought precisely because of the pencil. That someone working in a school can deny a kid that sort of good feeling about a little harmless mundane magic probes that they are unable of appreciating the feelings of that kid. The fact that I spelled mayonnaise correctly in my 4th grade class spelling bee, but the teacher claimed I didn't and dismissed me. I had won in the 3rd grade and proceeded to win in the 5th and 6th grades as well. The unfair disqualification in 4th grade ruined what would have been a 4-year streak. Before I knew English, I had a teacher tell me that my name is spelled with a Y when it's extremely obvious that it's spelled with an I. Of course I didn't know better, so I didn't say anything, but it seems really stupid that she thought that, since she was born in Australia I think. My mom told me she was wrong, but to me it was her word against her word. That's just not how names work. Even if you were called Ryan, which is normally spelled with a Y, it's up to your parents to decide. My sister got a brand new car for her 16th birthday. I got $20. That is nonsense. I would be salty AF. $20 is enough to buy a hammer. Or a good amount of pepper to balance the taste out. This constantly happened to me growing up. After 14 I had to work and buy myself all my own birthday gifts. We are twins. The second I got my first job, I was responsible for everything that went on or in my body. Down to toiletries. My parents did allow me to use one of their cars, but I had to pay for insurance, gas and any upkeep. The car I was using was about 15 years old and had nothing but trouble. I spent a fortune trying to keep it running. I think they made up the upkeep rule because they needed it running and had no money to do the work with. Not that I had much, but I worked, and my entire paycheck went to all of the above. Left home with about $100 to my name. Never went back either. That my 6th grade teacher refused to believe I had no idea the dude sitting behind me was copying my answers on the test. This happened to my best friend. Someone copied his answers, and he got detention and the kid didn't. My friend has never gotten in trouble at school, and the kid who copied was like 90% of the way to getting expelled. This one hits home. Me and another kid in 6th grade both got 100% on our quiz, so our teacher figured we must have cheated. Both of us were perplexed. The quiz just wasn't that hard. But she was having none of it. I remember begging her in the hallway, literally sobbing, to not give me a 0 because I didn't ducking cheat and I was a straight A student. She gave me the 0. I stopped caring about A grades on that very day. My mom decided that she didn't want Christmas presents one year and made sure to tell us, me and my 2 brothers. I suggested to her instead that we donate what we would have spent to charity in her name. She said she was fine with that if that's what we wanted to do. So that's what I did. I sent her a nice little card in the info for the charities I donated to so she could see that her decision helped some good organizations out. Mom was pissed. Why didn't you just send me a gift card if you weren't gonna buy me anything? You ruined Christmas. Now, I love my mom. By that point we had a total of one really nasty fight, and that was several years before. She was fine growing up. She was fine most of my adulthood except for a suicide attempt that I got to call the ambulance for from the other side of the country. Long story. I'm accustomed to buying my mom decent thoughtful presents. So when she accused me of ruining Christmas for her, I was distraught. I sent her a screen cap of the conversation we had and circled where she said she'd be fine with my decision to donate in her name. Her response? I don't remember that. I deleted those texts. I lost my shit, told her it's her own fault for raising me to do as I'm told, and next time just don't say shit if she's gonna change her mind and not tell us. And then we didn't speak for 3 months. This was 2.5 years ago, and I have not gotten over it. Who the duck gets annoyed at an act of charity like that? If you were my kid and you came to me with a card and it had a bunch of charities that you donated to, I'd be so proud, even if I was expecting presents. Coming second in a school trivia competition 21 years ago. I had the correct answers onto questions that would have sent us to the national champs and was vetoed by the other 3 shitheads on my team. That's a life lesson right there. Being right is almost never enough. You also have to be able to convince others that you're right. That hits hard. I was a co-founder of a startup, and during an early strategy meeting, I made a bunch of suggestions that the other founders aggressively dismissed. A year later, we got some funding and hired a CEO who was an expert in the field, and he suggested the exact same things, which they praised as brilliant. They later sheepishly remembered that I'd suggested the same ideas and apologized. That really taught me a lot. Being right is rarely enough. You need to understand why you're right, and you have to be able to sell your ideas. I was at a house party in college, and we had to take off our shoes. Some bitch walked home in my leather knee-high boots and I've never gotten over it. Someone stole my favorite jacket at a party and I will never get over it. Makes me so mad that people like that exist. A friend told me that they only hang out with me when all of their other options run dry. No longer a friend, I hope. Or at least, not the kind of friend you depend on. Well, only if all other options run dry. I have a friend who's like this. She only hangs when she's pissed at her real best friend and cancels in a heartbeat to hang with other people. A couple years ago I demoted her to a similar position, so we practically never hang out anymore. When I had to get photos printed for a university project, so I went to a printer shop and they charged me £2 extra for a DVD with my photos on, even though I told them I didn't want the DVD. So I didn't get it, but they still charged me anyways, and threw away my receipt before I could look at it. So with my new photos I went to hand in my project, only to be told that we were doing a peer review of them. No one in my group did the project, and couldn't care less about it. So I wasted all that time and effort. Still so salty. So I just moved into my college dorm. Me and my roommate were setting up a printer. After about 30 minutes of it not working, I decide to see what the college website says about printers. Almost word for word it said, unless you live in a swamp or a jungle, you don't need a wireless printer. Basically they are not allowed. Conveniently the library has a printer, where we can pay them more money though. Edit, I'm aware I can do it through USB. I just think their reasoning on why we can't use wireless printers, and the solution they give, is funny. I had a similar argument with a drugstore photo center about passport photos. I resized and cropped my photo at home to print 6 passport size photos on a 4x6, and brought that into a drugstore photo center to have it printed. Should have been like 30 cents, but they kept trying to charge me something ridiculous like $14 because it's a passport photo and anything using their passport photo program was charged extra. And I kept arguing that it was a passport photo, but being printed like any other 4x6, not using their passport photo option / software. I don't know why, but I decided it was a hill I would die on, and is the one and only time in my life I've asked to speak with a manager. I've mentioned this before, But when I was about 8 or 9, we had a big project in school which ended with us writing a story. I spent stuck-in hours on this thing. It was going to be the best book ever. It was only a matter of time before it was snapped up by some publisher, and then it would be the talk of the Scholastic Book Fair, no doubt in my mind. It absolutely had to be in by the time school finished for Christmas, so my teacher could mark it over the break, so I stayed up until about 10 o'clock at night for about a week beforehand working on it, which, you know, is the closest thing you get to an all-nighter when you're about 9. It was my magnum opus. I got back to school in January to find that, first, she had lost it, second, she was accusing me of not handing it in, and third, because mine was the only one she couldn't find, she decided to call me out in front of the class about it. I ended up locking myself in the toilet because I was crying so much. Worst still, it later transpired that when it turned up after all, she marked it as though it was handed in late, and the bitch still only gave me a middling grade. Duck you, Mrs. Harding. Duck that teacher. In a similar vein, when I was 17, in high school, I was dreaming of becoming a published author one day. I had always enjoyed storytelling, and I would always make a special effort to do well in school when it came to creative writing. At some point during the year, our professor asked us to write him a short story of about 1,000 words. I was very excited because I had tremendous respect for that man and loved his classes. I really wanted to impress him. Wrote a sci-fi short story that involved an ice planetoid turned into a digging site for underground resources. Workers lived in stacked boxes apartments and traveled in spheres shooting through a network of large above-ground tubes. The plot involved the protagonist uncovering an artificial structure under the ice, then being immediately fired and sent back to Earth in a single-person shuttle. It was strongly implied that the single-person shuttle was just a way to dispose of workers who knew too much about what the corporation was really digging for. Anyway, it wasn't very good, probably a little derivative. I did consume a lot of sci-fi books, movies, games, etc., and nothing more than you'd expect from an average 17-year-old. But the professor handed it back to me without having even marked it, asking me to turn in another one on very short notice, this time without plagiarizing from some popular novel. I told him I didn't, asked what book he thought I'd plagiarized, because if a book told that story, I honestly wanted to read it, swearing the story was purely my own. I even admitted that I was likely influenced by a lot of things, but still came up with that one organically. He never heard my plea, never even named the book, or gave me more of a reason why he thought so poorly of my work. Lost a lot of respect for him, and a lot of interest in his classes after that. I'm still pissed about it, and it's been over 20 years. This reminded me of what I'm still salty about. In 4th grade I was bored during the summer, and had thought of an idea for a story. It was about a set of quadruplets that solved mysteries, lol, and my intent was to make it a chapter book. I wrote the first 3 chapters on our Windows 95 computer, and printed them out and proudly gave them to my mom to read. She later sat me down and told me about plagiarism in 4th grade terms. I was so upset that she didn't believe that I wrote it, that I gave up on the whole idea, and as far as I can recall, never did any creative writing outside of schoolwork again. Thanks, Mom. On a 4th grade math test we had to make a shape that had only 4 sides, 1 set of parallel lines, and only 1 right angle. There were probably more requirements, but I can't remember. I remember almost crying at my desk and spending 20 minutes on that one question, while constantly telling my teacher that it wasn't possible, but according to her it was. And the next day we went over the answer key, and the answer had 2 right angles. Yo, I had something like this happen to me too. We had a paper sheet with tons of math questions. One of them was impossible and the whole class knew it. We went up to our teacher and she said, no questions. Next day we were reviewing it, and she said it was impossible, but still marked us all wrong. When my old boss pulled out the 2020 calendar in late 2019 and asked everyone what days off they need so we can plan ahead and around. Everyone was spitting off dates. I didn't have any plans, yet so I didn't request anything until she specifically asked me if I needed/wanted any dates off. I shrugged and asked for one day around my birthday because why not, and she started mocking me in front of everyone. It's just a 23rd birthday, why would you need that off? But okay. Obviously rolling her eyes, then started treating me like an idiot the rest of the day. I'm honestly lost as to why you got mocked, to be honest. Me too. That's why I'm still so salty. A child in my child's class at school told their teacher that their mom was taking them out of school for the day of their birthday, and so they would be absent on that day. The teacher admonished the child and told them that if they weren't present the following day, that there would be hell to pay. The child was rightly upset and decided to go into school. They hadn't taken down their homework properly and so did 3 different pages of work. It was the wrong work. The teacher locked the child in the classroom over lunch on their birthday. I have a similar story. In 5th grade I had to get all my homework assignments signed by my parents in order to turn them in and get credit. On my birthday it snowed for the first time in 20 years in my town, but I forgot to get my homework signed the night before, probably because we went out for dinner or birthday stuff. Anyways, the teacher's aide didn't let me leave the classroom for lunch or recess while all the other kids went out and played in the snow. It was awful, but the worst part was my mom was a teacher at the school in the next wing down. I asked if I could go and get her signature to play in the snow with my friends and the teacher's aide said it wouldn't be appropriate. My mom was obviously upset about it and I was devastated to not get to play in the rare snow. So after school she took me and my brother up into the snow to play around and have a snowball fight. She turned my nightmare day into what was probably the most fun birthday I can remember from my early childhood. I have a pretty wonderful mom. 20 years ago I had 3 friends show up at my house, and when they left my wallet with $80 in it was missing. One of the guys felt bad and gave me $20 back. 3 years after that we are in the BK drive-thru and he whipped out my wallet. Still salty. His FB friend request has just been sitting there for like 2 years. Did you confront him at the drive-thru? Yes. He blamed one of the other friends who was staying with him at the time it happened. I made him give me the wallet back. He complained but I didn't care. I'm 35 now. When I was 14 or 15, my mom stormed into my room one evening and accused me of smashing a glass and getting rid of the evidence. It was one of these retro Coke glasses. I swore I didn't break any glass, and if I did, why would I hide such a small accident? But my mom didn't believe me. She was so mad and accused me of lying. She wouldn't even say why I was her prime suspect. Somehow it just had to be me. Anyway, I got into trouble for it even without any evidence. Sometime later it turned out no glass was actually smashed. My mom thought the glasses she bought came in 4s. But our neighbor bought the same set and there were actually 3 glasses in it. My mom acknowledged the fact, but never apologized to me for how she screamed at me or how she accused me out of the blue. She just never mentioned it again. I'm still mad about it. I'm not surprised you're still mad. You have every right to be. I have, on a couple of occasions, chewed out one of my children for something they didn't do. I've always made a point to go to them and say, explicitly, I thought you did this thing, and now I know that you didn't. I'm sorry for shouting at you for something I now know wasn't your doing. Quite apart from it simply being the right thing to do, apologizing for making a mistake keeps them fundamentally on side, rather than them just thinking, oh, that old fool is shouting again, whatever. When I was 10, I, the goody two-shoes nerd, was sat in the back of the bus, next to the class troublemaker, because we had assigned seats, thanks to him. He took apart someone's science fair project that was being kept back there and threw a piece out the window. When someone tattled on him, he blamed it on me, and since the teacher couldn't prove one way or another, they just punished both of us, despite 15 kids coming to my defense. duck schools and their fairness in discipline. All I got was one study hall. Kids today are getting bullied relentlessly because they know that standing up for themselves means getting suspended. When I was in junior high, the principal said during an anti-bullying assembly that they were going to try to stop bullying in the school. She didn't change anything about how bullying was handled, and that really made me mad because I was bullied constantly back then. I once returned a wallet to a police station like 15 years ago. They laughed cause there was money in it still. They then asked for my address so they could mail me a little something to commemorate the good deed. Never got anything. I just wanted to hang it on my fridge. My wife and I were geocaching and we found a wallet with ID still inside, no money. We were in the middle of nowhere, as usual for geocaching, so we tried to find the closest police station. They acted like this was the most absurd, useless, and time-consuming thing they ever had to do. They grilled us a bunch of info, like this podunk nowhere police station was going to be the victim of some elaborate scam. It took like 90 minutes just to return it. There was literally nothing else going on, just 3 cops flipping their things in the office. Next time, I'm just dropping it in a post office box. I tried to get an officer to help returning a lost phone. He said if I gave it to the police the only thing they would do would be destroy it. I just replied to a text from the guy's daughter and he came and got it. Was super grateful, got $40, it was sweet. That my managers wouldn't let me have a weekend off for what would have essentially been my honeymoon because it's Small Business Saturday and you need to be here. I gave them over a month's notice and Small Business Saturday lasted all of an hour. Thank God, I don't work there anymore. I was probably 5 years old visiting my mom at the hospital after she gave birth to my brother and she was given food on a tray which she didn't want, so she gave it to me. I put the tray on the table and as I was eating, the nurse takes the tray away from me and throws away the food. That may have my first true instance of anger in my life. I'm 27 now, and I'm pissed as I'm writing this. What a waste of food. If it's any consolation, where I work, we just talk family to go ahead and eat if the patient doesn't want it, infectious diseases aside of course. My brother eating the remainder of my birthday cake behind my back a couple of years ago. After the celebrations I put what was left in the freezer to have some other time as a nice treat, birthday cake being a novelty. The ducker demolished every last bit of it. This wasn't just a little slice of cake left over, at least half of the cake remained until he got his mitts on it. Was absolutely fuming. Literally ducking same. I baked a cake for mom's birthday a couple of years ago and specifically hid my cake, one slice of cake, that I made, because I loved baking, and liked tasting my own creations, and he saw the hidden cake, and deduced that it must have been hidden for him, so he'll ask no questions and simply eat the cake, since it must belong to him. Same thing happened to my leftover food this morning. I will always be pissed when people eat my food. When I was 21, I was deeply self-conscious about my baldness and I wore a hat everywhere. A friend of mine thought I was worried over nothing, so he set me up on a date with a wonderful woman. Everything went well at first, but when the hat came off, she shrieked and sprinted to the bathroom. And that was that. Sounds like you dodged a bullet, to be honest. My mum ate a candy I saved for after school. It happened 20 years ago. The question in 2nd grade math, Joe read 2/5 of his book and Sue read 1/4 of her book. Who read more pages? It depends on how big their books are, is absolutely the correct answer and shouldn't have been marked wrong. And you ducking know it, don't you, Mrs. K? Don't you? Kindergarten. Playing with a kid in the sandbox was a fairly drizzly day. We are making a castle, and there's a puddle a few feet from us. He wants to dig a moat around the castle, and I say sure. So he just kinda jams his hand in the dirt and starts pulling, making way too huge of a channel, which he immediately realizes is going to just destroy our castle. So I say, quick, build a dam to stop the water. He freezes, stares at me with wide eyes and mouth agape before running off. I think this is strange, but okay, whatever. I saved the castle, so I go back to digging when the teacher runs up and grabs me and says to go to timeout, to which I obviously protest and say no, WTF, I didn't do anything. She then immediately says she knows I said a bad word and to not try and lie, to which I'm again confused and say I did not. After a few back and forths of her trying to pull me away by the arm and me rather violently resisting, it occurs to her to actually ask what happened. I explained the story. I still remember her face kinda dropping, realizing the other little shit thought I said damn instead of damn, and then immediately ratting on me. Tries to say, well, maybe use a different word, to which I again vehemently protest against, because no, that is the correct word for such a situation and that's just how it works, and it's his fault for not knowing the word, etc, etc, until she finally gives in and explains to the kid that I did not swear and that no one likes tattletales. I'm in my 30s and on the other side of the country, and I still remember this as a very instance in which I gazed upon my fellow man and wept, for he is stupid. I worked at McDonald's in high school. I trained maybe half a dozen other people who started there after I did, and was never promoted to crew trainer for that sweet $0.15 an hour raise. I wouldn't really be salty about it if they hadn't promoted 2 people I trained to crew trainer and one of them again to manager.